Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my good friend, the chairman, for yielding me the time and for those incredibly gracious and generous remarks. You know, I to support the rule and the underlying legislation, and by the very nature of rules debates, everything seems to be partisan because it seems to be sort of shirts and skins as it is on the rules. But the reality is the legislation we're talking about has actually been requested by both parties. And we had both the chairman and the ranking member in there requesting, because they are working together in a bipartisan way, to produce a major piece of legislation that will direct spending for the United States government in the range of about $1 trillion between now and September 30th. And the important thing to note is it is a very bipartisan negotiation between two very skillful legislators, Chairman Frelinghuysen and Ranking Member Nita Lowey. When they bring that legislation to the floor, as they will next week, it's going to have some pretty important and pretty major things on it. We're not only going to adequately fund our military, we're going to increase that. We're going to give the president some things he's asked for in terms of supplemental money for defense to upgrade and improve our military. We're going to give him some additional things for border security as well that, again, both parties have agreed on. I think we all want secure borders. We know there's always some debate about exactly how or what we should do, but in this case we have a bipartisan agreement. We'll actually give a very substantial increase to the National Institute of Health, which my good friend the chairman mentioned. Great work is done on behalf of the American people at that institution, and frankly, it's been Republicans that first doubled that back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and now have reignited the biomedical research engine by putting additional resources in there. Something our friends support, but actually it was Republicans that took the initiative to achieve. We'll see some really important increases in some education programs to give some of our less advantaged citizens opportunities to go. TRIO, Gear Up, both be prepared for higher education and then have a chance to opportunity when it comes. So that bill will have a lot of good things in it that will be bipartisan. And my good friends from Massachusetts mentioned, and I think appropriately so, that there's a certain amount of dysfunction in the appropriations process. Where we probably disagree is, I got to tell you, it's not new. Since we passed the Budget Control Act 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, in 1974, budgets and appropriations have been completed on time exactly 4 times. Didn't matter who was in charge. So maybe we ought to go back and look at that defective process that was set in motion by our friends back when they controlled both chambers in overwhelming numbers and rethink how we do this. But I do agree with my friend that it's important to focus on first things first. And while tax reform is a very important goal that I think this Congress will achieve, and while health care is a very important goal, which I certainly hope this conference achieves, and I think we're working toward, no question the most important thing we do around here is fund the government every day and make sure that our military has what it needs to protect us, and that our border control officials have what they need to make sure they're secure, that we do things like look for cures for Alzheimer's and cancer at the NIH. And to me, that always is the most important thing that has to do. And so in this bill and in the bill that will follow next week, we're actually doing what we should do. We're putting first things first. Let's make sure these basics are done for the American people. Then let's get about the important business of changing their tax code and making sure that they have the best health care in the world. In my view, Congress could have, and to my friend's point, could have and should have done this months ago. It's important to note that the Appropriations Committee had reported out all 12 of the bills that fund the day-to-day operation of the budget. 5 of them actually moved across the floor. We did run into problems in the United States Senate where there was a lot of obstruction, but the Appropriations Committee did its job. We just have to now, as a Congress, do our job and make sure those bills get to the floor in a timely manner and that we do the right thing so that they pass. The Appropriations Committee can only prepare them. They don't get to schedule them on the floor. They don't get to move them across the floor. That has to be done with all sides working together for the good of the American people. Again, it's worth noting that we can do this process. 2 years in a row, we've done all 12 bills. So I would hope in the future, as we make these decisions. And my friend's right. A decision was made in November or December. It's not one I agreed with. To wait and say, let's let the new administration have some input on this. Now, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. New administration wants to come in. There's a vehicle called a supplemental where if they want to tweak the budget, they can do that and they can bring it to the floor. And that's what we should have done. But we shouldn't ask them to write the budget for the very year in which they show up. They simply don't have their people in place. They're not ready to do that. They've got to get their cabinet appointed. So I would hope in the future we remember that and do first things first. Still, never too late to do the right thing, as my mom used to say. And the right thing to do today is to pass this rule, pass this bill, give our friends, the appropriators, the time that they need to negotiate a final bill. I'm confident we will do that. I'm confident we will do it on a bipartisan basis, Mr. Speaker, and I'm confident we'll be back here with a bill the American people can be proud of because it will have been negotiated in good faith, it will be bipartisan, and it will give us the stability that we need from now until September the 30th. So with that, I thank again my friend, the Chair.